Some people chase opportunity. Others walk straight into chaos and build something out of it. Today's guest, Jean Vezina, didn't come to Timor-Leste with a master plan. He came at a time when the country was rebuilding, when the systems weren't there, when even the basics, roads, tools, infrastructure, had to be figured out as they went. And Jean himself was rebuilding with it. What started as civil engineering work in a broken city became something much bigger. The Caltech Group, a company built not just on construction, but on solving problems, whatever they happened to be. From building roads for peacekeepers, to building businesses simply because they didn't exist yet, to recycling plastic into desks for schools. This is a story about showing up again and again, even when it's damn hard. And maybe, most importantly, it's about rethinking what success and profit actually looks like. This is a conversation about resilience, responsibility, and building something that lasts. On the ground, with real people, in the real world. I'm Gabrielle, and this is 68 Cups of Blueberry Tea.
Wow. Well, so you came here in 1999, right, with the Doctors Without Borders, and many people wouldn't understand that Doctors Without Borders isn't solely medical personnel. What brought you here as an engineer as part of that organisation?
Well, let's see, basically logistic and, to make the story short, the best surgeon needs a ward, electricity, running water, in order to operate. Doctor Without Borders work a lot in refugee camps as well. So there's a lot of logistic things as simple as where do you pitch the tent? Is this a flood zone? Is there danger? Is there a risk of flooding? Is there a risk of lightning strikes? Is there a risk of shelling? Is there a risk of cholera? Like if you don't manage the wastewater properly, how do you feed? Where do you feed? What do you do with the food scrap? Vermin control, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a huge team of non-medical staff working with Doctor Without Borders, from generator maintenance to car mechanic to logistician, and obviously engineers when it comes to structural integrity of building and planning and the likes. So I joined with them. I was 26 years old. Was one of the youngest, what they call it, WATSAM, water and sanitation, to be deployed to an active zone. That started my time with them in Congo. From Congo went to China during the flood, the Yangtze River. Then there was an earthquake after that. Then I ended up being in Asia, and I got deployed to multiple provinces of Indonesia, and then eventually stepped foot in Timor. The role that changed from water and sanitation to engineering, if you want, more hardcore engineering, to planning mission, to assessing and assessing needs and all that. So there was a little bit of that. Let's put it like this: in Doctor Without Borders, when you have 3 years of field experience, you're almost a veteran.
Okay.
What got me to Timor, or what kept me to Timor, would probably qualify today as PTSD. I had reached a point where between each mission, between the first and the second mission, there was maybe 6 weeks, 2 months. You go back home, you do your life, you fit back into your life, into your friends, into your family, and then you move on again. But as the time was passing with my different posting, the break time was getting shorter and shorter, but to be fair, I failed to realize what was going on, and as an organization, they possibly failed because you go back in the 90s, PTSD was solely for soldiers. Like you did not hear PTSD on police officers or first responder or aid workers, but when you reflect on this, soldiers can have PTSD, but the aid workers are in the same West war zone camp because obviously we're resistant to PTSD. And then there's multiple sources of stress as well, where there's traumatic stress, but there's also cumulative stress where you never sleep enough, you never get the result, the exact result that you're chasing, and you have a lot of tiny micro frustrations all over the entire deployment of it's raining, it's when it should be sunny, you ask something to be done, it isn't, and all this, and the micro stress, it doesn't create the same. PTSD comes from traumatic stress, but exhaustion comes from cumulative stress. And you can see it even here in Delhi. Sometimes you're in one of the hardware shop or the grocery store and you see an expat who snaps over something that you think that is weird.
Is that very necessary?
But the thing is that person maybe this morning had asked for vanilla ice cream but got chocolate. Asked for a meal with the sauce on the side but didn't. So all of this, you think it's ridiculous, but it adds up, and then suddenly something happened and the person snapped, and that's the result of cumulative stress, which is a source of mental exhaustion.
Yeah. Always being switched on as well,
and always being switched on and all this, and then one of the things that is very difficult to switch off when you have deployed in active area is like your brain become more animals than human, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And a horse sleep, but you just do that and he can start galloping. Mm-hmm. Because they sleep and then half of their brain is asleep and the other half is monitoring noises and monitoring what's going on around them. And if you look at an animal sleeping, in my case, horses, you see their ears.
Alert.
But they're sleeping. They're sleeping because the horse will lift the legs when he sleeps. But what humans, soldiers in particular, are like that. You train yourself to recognize danger. So your brain is asleep, but half of your brain is still monitoring crackling noise in the forest or whatever, and when you've deployed, naturally this comes to become a second nature, and even years later you can be asleep, but the buzz of an aircon that was not meant to be on, or a light that turns on that would wake you up, so you never sleep. Basically, you never sleep properly. So to go back to why I ended up in East Timor or Timor-Leste is I had reached a point where I was addicted. I was addicted to, as weird as it sounds, to chaos. I was addicted to war zone. I was addicted to real life, if you want. What we would perceive as real life was life and death situation, real problems, not what I call first world problems, like, I'm so disappointed. I wanted a blue car, but they only had the different shade of blue that I wanted, so I'll have to live with it now for 5 years. So when you come back from a mission and you're in the grocery store and you hear somebody saying, I can't believe they don't have any orange juice, the one that I like, you feel like saying, listen, there's 3 brands. There's quarter pulp, half pulp, 100% pulp, pulp with omega-3 and calcium. And then you got 3 brands. So which one would make you happy? Well, normally I drink just like, or you in line to get a black coffee, and then the person places an order, you would think that it's a contract. There's so many ways of like I just want a black coffee. I don't want the 15 questions. Black coffee in a cup.
The type of milk.
Yeah, it's like, what sort of bean? I really don't care. You make the coffee. You give it to me. So this sorts of, and then you have the person next to you. Oh, I can't believe they don't have Arabica from Colombia with soy milk. I will have to deal with almond milk from. Then you think, but 24 hours before that, you might have been in a refugee camp where people would not have enough water to drink. In fairness, because of you, because you're the one in charge of the water. So adapting to this, and this one of the causes of post-traumatic stress, I think, is especially in soldiers, is that they're in the middle of a war zone, they do their last mission, they survive it, they get on a plane, the next day they have the kids on their lap, and they've been asked to be a good father to their kids or a good mother to their kids. This is why now there's transition. They transition from frontline to a base somewhere, and then from the base back into home. But the point is, once you've been in a war zone, you've been in a war zone. The war zone will be with you for the rest of your life. And so I had come to a point where the deployment was, between mission 1 week, 2 week, and yes, you need to do a psychological assessment before deploying, or when you return, a debriefing, debriefing, and all that. With any organization, you need to do it, but you also know what to say. It's not like you have a psychologist in front of you that has never been in a war zone, in charge of assessing if you're fit to deploy. So. Yeah, I'm good. You all right? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, look forward to go back. Yeah, that's fine. You rested? Yeah, sleep well. Sleep well. Yeah. What is sleep well?
Yeah.
Do you sleep 8? See,
with half your brain still awake.
Do you sleep 8 hours? No. Have you ever slept 8 hours straight in recent years? Nope. That's the point. So, and then everybody at home does not understand what you do. And you come back from a mission and you've been asked by your friends, how was your holiday? Then you think, okay, there's no point continuing this conversation. So the answer was like, yeah, it was right.
Yes, yeah, it was great.
Yeah. And then you redeploy, and then you're with people who understand what you are. What you've been through, what you've done, et cetera, et cetera. So to a very long answer to your question is, why did Timor felt appealing back in the days, is that I knew I needed to transition out of Doctor Without Borders, but I did not know to what. And Timor was such a mess after the war that it felt home in some ways. And I think in some ways it was probably what I was needing, because it was a mess and it was steadily getting better, when in reality, possibly I was a mess and I was steadily getting better myself. So it was like a symbiotic relationship, if you want. As the country was getting better, I was getting more at peace with the modern world, if you want. And then the return after a certain number of years here, then returning home felt more home. And I did not feel out of place anymore, and and so on and so forth. And then the transition has been steadily improving since then, if you want, to the point that now we can be home and not feel like, losing my temper in the aisle of the orange juice in the middle of a grocery store. So this is a bit the story. all this happening unbeknownst to me in some ways.
Yeah. You were here for Timor, but at the same time for yourself. And what was it that kept you here in Timor as you were recovering?
Well, I mean, through all my time with Doctor Without Borders, I've kept a certain an arm's length distance between myself and the people I was there to help. You know, I was trying to connect with them, but never on a personal level, never on a, I would not say that they were patient, but, you know, they were people I was there to help. I did not necessarily need them to be part of my life. I did not need it to be part of their life, other than being a first responder or trying to help and trying to set up make their life easier. So, but to me, I was a tool at their disposal to go through the hardship of what they are going through right now. When came Timor, I developed a friendship with Sheila, who is now my wife. And it was the first time as well that I was coming before the conflict. And that has been mentally difficult in some ways, because I know what it was before it got all destroyed. When normally I would arrive, it has already been destroyed. So I don't know what was there before, what shop was here, or what was this, or what was this street looking like before it got all destroyed. When Dili, I came, it was never at peace, but it was structured. Yes, they were being occupied, and there was a lot of things happening in the background, but to a foreigner living in Dili, you know, the streets were organized, the buildings were tidy, and, you know, and all that. And then seeing everything destroyed, you're talking 90% of all the building destroyed. That was an eye-opening an eye-opener in terms of, you know, all this happened in a few weeks, a few months. And having developed a friendship, you know, it's the first time I'm sad for you to see what happened to your country. And I needed some time off. You know, I knew that I was on a spiral that was probably not good in the long run, because it's addictive. Basically, you become addicted to adrenaline. You become addicted to missions, to chaos, to all this. So we're not built to be living in chaos constantly. So you could see that I was definitely more violent than I was once was. Or my reaction were, you know, more reactive, you know, like I would snap, you know, fairly quickly, and, you know, and all that. So I knew that there was a time to change, but I did not really know how. And then, so I see a city that has been completely destroyed, and I'm a civil engineer. So you think, well, surely I'll be able to find some work. And that came fairly quickly. And then that's how basically Caltech was created. It was just me being a project manager for engineering project around. I was a freelance project manager. Landed my first job with a company called Hazel Brothers from Tasmania. We were building roads for the United Nations, and then we started working for them. And that's just an example of the addiction to chaos. We were building roads for the United Nations, for the Peacekeepers to be able to go patrol the area where we were building the roads. So in effect, we were building a road in territory that were barely patrolled because there was no road to go and patrol it. But to me, that job made sense at the time. You know, when you reflect on this now, you think, okay, you know, maybe that's why the money was good. You know, so we did 2 years of road building in Timor, but obviously at the beginning it was for the Peacekeeper, and after that was just
So the wheels came before the suitcase in that instance?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it was like So what, I just realized that a few years ago, actually, when somebody was asking me, what do you do in Timor? I said, I was building road for the Peacekeepers. For what purpose? So that they can go patrol the area. Then you think, oh, okay, it makes sense. So I was there, like, ahead of the Peacekeepers, like I was, where's the forward operating base? 10 kilometers this way. So you're ahead of the forward operating base. So there's a reason why it's called a forward operating base. But anyway, so that's what's the life. And then at some stage, the friendship became a romantic relationship between Sheila and I. And then she decided that she was no longer fulfilled in her job at the UNDP, and she decided to join me in Caltech and doing some project administration. And then after that, we started recruiting our own people. And then the Hazel Brothers company, after 2 years, had completed their project with the United Nations and were desired to return to Australia and not remain operational in Timor. Was invited to go and possibly work in Tasmania. Went to have a look. Was very tempted, but at the end we chose to stay in Timor and continue a little bit further. So we acquired the equipment from Hazel Brothers, and that's when Caltech became a contracting company, if you want. Before we were project managers, now we became full-blown contractor.
In their place,
because Hazel Brothers was our main clients in terms of labor supply. So we were already employing the people of Hazel Brothers. We were already managing several projects of Hazel Brothers, and basically we had only to buy their machines. Hazel Brothers were very, very helpful because there was no bank in Timor back in the days. It was post-war. Post-war Timor had no bank. There is no loan. There is no nothing. So we were not in a position to buy anything. But the Hazel Brothers group decided to trust us and finance us, basically. So we acquired it on a handshake and then paid it over many years after that. But there would be no Caltech without Hazel Brothers. There's no doubt about it. And then, so that was in 2002, June 2002 that we acquired Hazel Brothers and Timor, that is. And then this place here was the Venture Hotel. It was called the Paxinus Lodge back in the day. Was housing. This is where Sheila grew up. This is their land. There used to be a house before the war, but that house got destroyed and then got bulldozed. And then a company called Curtin Brothers were here and set up a temporary accommodation, more like an army camp, if you want, where this was all demountable buildings. And in 2004, they expressed a desire to close their facility. So we saw a need because they had demountable building and we were a construction company. So it's very interesting. So I wanted to buy it for the demountables. Sheila saw a potential as a hotel. So we settled that every time I need demountables, I can remove them from the site. And in exchange, I will be building you something solid. And gradually, over 10 years, we remove all the demountables to replace them with the building that you see today. And that's how the Venture Hotel was born. Basically, initially, it was out of the first Venture Hotel was the Paxinus Lodge that was just rebranded. And then every 6 months, we would remove buildings and fix some, put some art building. So that been the longest construction project we ever undertook because it was financed through cash flow. There was limited bank support and loans and the likes. It's always been a challenge in Timor. financing project is, even to this date, is still a challenge because of multiple factors, but one being that the bankruptcy laws are not yet ratified. So when a bank give you the favor of lending you money, it's a lot based on trust rather than legality, if you want, or regulation. So
What year did the first bank come to Timor-Leste?
sorry?
What year was the first bank established here?
Can't remember, but ANZ were early in the pace. Portuguese bank BNU, and then later on, the local Timorese created their bank, the BNCTL, which is now the source of most lending for Timorese owned company. So BNCTL has been a breath of fresh air in terms of assisting the development of local company. When the ANZ back in the days were open to public and lending, but then they had a change of art, but a change of policies, if you want, back about a decade ago, where they closed the retail. So, there was no more private banking at the ANZ here in Timor. It's only company. And the lending was restricted to a certain number of clients as well. The Portuguese bank, they also lend, but we don't bank with them at the moment.
Well, then even back to the foundations of Caltech. So it came together as you were helping to assist rebuilding Dili as a city, but then you've taken it a step further, right? To make use of plastics, to make use of it as the infrastructure for the buildings and for furniture.
But there's a few things that came before that.
Mm-hmm.
By operating in Timor, we live here, obviously, and we operate a business, and you see what is missing. You have like supply chain issue, you have material issue, et cetera. So the development of Caltech ended up being lateral rather than vertical. So every time we can't find something locally, we look at it as a potential business opportunity. And that's what has now led to Caltech ranging from having nail salon all the way to a marine division. Because the nail salon came as like back, there was once upon a time, it was hard to find somewhere to get nail done and massage and the likes of this. And then, so Shayla just saw an opportunity, and she took over a business that was closing because the expats were returning to Australia, and she took it over and then established it. Now it's a different, now there's a lot of similar business, but it's a legacy that we've kept. But there was a time where Caltech even imported coffee to Timor, when the major export in Timor is coffee. We were importing coffee because there was a couple of bad seasons, and all the good beans were being exported, and we were left drinking the bad ones, and coffee tasted horrible. So we looked at what can we do about it? Well, there's other country making coffee, so we started importing coffee. And because our coffee here, we wanted to serve good coffee. You come to a coffee shop and you have a bad coffee, you don't need it. Even if the owner says, "Oh, that's the best we can do," it's not good enough. So we imported for 2 seasons. We imported coffee into Timor, and then people will say, "Oh, this is great coffee. It's the best cup I ever had. I have since I arrived in Timor." And then just like, unfortunately, yeah. But I mustn't. Now we obviously no longer importing coffee, but basically it's just an example to show you that the whole development of our business was not about construction. It was about living in Dili. So, if you look at the story of DIS, for instance, the Dili International School was created by a couple who needed a school for their children, and they could not find one. And that you go back in the early 2000s. So they decided to open a school. So this type of entrepreneurship in Timor is very frequent because you live here. You want to have a business opportunity, just sit at the port and look what comes in. Like, for instance, for a long time, all bottled water drank in Timor was coming from Indonesia, aqua. So it was not hard for the current local bottlers to know that there was a business case. You just need to look at how many containers of aqua are coming every day or every month. And this is your market,
The water bottles ready for water.
And so now there's bottling plant. There's Timor-Leste, Leste, Gota, and there's another one. I can't remember that. But now they're taking the market away from aqua, which was imported water. So this is an example of lateral development. So we're a construction company. Where can we get scaffold? Is there somewhere we can rent scaffold? Nope. Well, maybe that's if we need it, all the others company need it. So let's buy some scaffold and use it for ourselves and have a rental business on the side. Where can we buy some tools? In Australia, you've got tool hire shops, and you've got multiple business that specialize in hiring tools. In here, you did not have that, and 90% of all building had been destroyed, and the content was destroyed as well. So there was a time where you could have 5 boxes of nails but no hammer. So whoever has the hammer has got the power for building. So it was all about what is needed, and do we want to be involved in this or not? And so we've done a lot of things over the years, and that has created the mindset of being the fixer, if you want. And it has really been very important because Timor has had several periods of unrest, and these periods had impact on different markets. And being diversified made that we were able to always have an area of the business where we can actually deploy a bit more resources and survive the period until something else builds up and creates a niche need, or So say, for instance, when COVID hit, we had different divisions that some of them were made busy because of COVID, while other, like the hotel, slowed down completely, if not stopped. But, our waste management division was critical infrastructure. Our construction division was critical because we were involved in building clinics and the likes. So all this has made that we managed to go through multiple phases. But one of the main phases that occurred in about 2004 was the development of the Bayundan facility offshore, and they needed Timorese labor, and they were looking for partners in order to develop the labor so that they can work to Australian standard in the fields of scaffolding, blasting, painting, and all sorts of skills. And so we took this opportunity and we got involved, and that rapidly became our core business. So Caltech Construction always remained operational, but for a while Caltech Construction was secondary to Caltech Offshore Services, and then so that was for nearly 2 decades. But like any facility, at some stage, an oil rig or a gas facility run out of resource, and the closure of Bayundan was becoming imminent. About 3 years ago, there was talks of the field running out, and so we were looking at how could we diversify the business to prepare for that very fact, and what is needed, how can we diversify the business and all this? So the idea of recycling and doing things out of plastic, because started maybe 10 years ago, where we were looking at the deterioration of the beaches and the amount of plastic accumulating and all that, which was ever increasing every year because of basically plastic use of over increasing. And so we started the concept of circular, and that led to bringing in some equipment, some machinery to run some tests. And these pavers that we make, once upon a time we were making 8 per day. Our shredder was this big, and we had to hand feed every bottles into it, and then pick the flakes by hand and put it in a granulator, which was about this big, and then we would put it in an extruder that was about this big, and then make one paver, and all this would take nearly an hour. And today we make possibly 2,000 of these paver in a day, but obviously the equipment has grown in size. But it was important to start from prototyping, demonstrate the possibility, and then moving on with time.
Mm-hmm.
So the paver were enabling us to recycle glass and plastic, but then there was all different other plastic, like film plastic, multi-layer plastic, Tetra Paks, and all this that was being discarded. And then we came to realize that if you're going to go through sorting rubbish, you may as well take everything. So we looked at other technology that would allow to recycle the entire spectrum of plastic, and then that's when the boards came about. And all this was a journey over nearly 10 years, but say the last 3 were very effort and resource intensive. So the growth, 3 years ago we launched the commercial version of the paving equipment. 2 years ago the board, and now this year is the first year where we have both running concurrently, with projects of expansion possibly in different countries as well. So we're working on that. But all of this is basically stem from this vision of if you don't know anyone doing it, then it's an opportunity. And then if you are willing, you don't have to, but if you're willing, then it might be of interest to look into it. And this is what we've done. That has been the DNA of our group. And if you look at this, so Caltech Construction started it all. Caltech Services was developed when the oil and gas industry needed support, Timor-Leste-based company to support. That led to the creation of Caltech Marine, because the oil and gas industry used vessels. Caltech Environment was developed, following the observation that construction generate a lot of waste, hotels generate a lot of waste, and there's always been a desire for us to have as limited impact as possible. So the only way we could do that was to recycle, but there is no recycling in Timor, so we needed to start the ball rolling. But the traditional recycling that you have in modern economy, you take a bottle to make a bottle because somebody needs a bottle. But in here, now there is bottling plant, but at the time there was, and even today, the number of bottles that is required in country does not warrant the construction of a like a plastic factory, if you want. So it's still cheaper to import the bottles that are used in Timor. But what we thought an opportunity is to use the plastic to make something useful, construction materials. And as you can see now, they can be turned into desks, they can be turned into landscaping products and the likes. So to do all this, there's a need for training. So again, there was training partners that we've tried and used over the years, but it became obvious that there was a a niche market where we could actually be helpful and useful to ourselves internally. So we created Caltech Development, which is now a training division of Caltech. And then Caltech Agriculture, that's for Timor. There's a niche that we'd like to develop, but we're still working on it. But internationally in Canada, we have agriculture is our core business in Canada. So forestry in particular. So we have developed in there, and then we've learned a few things there. So internationally now, Caltech has an office in Singapore, in Perth, in Australia, and in Canada as well. So so it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah.
And it's still continuing. It's in our DNA, as I said, to reinvent ourselves based on market, be the front runner in a lot of new field, and we monitor the world for new technology, new ideas, and we try to bring them back to Timor and adapt them to the Timorese market. So some of them are for some the Timorese market is ready, for some still developing, and maybe not yet, but we keep an eye on the different options.
And what are the 3 Ps behind Caltech?
Well, the 3P, we adopted this policy. As I was saying before, when you report a company success on profit, which is the traditional way of doing it in a lot of markets and in a lot of industry, we felt, Shella and I, that it did not reflect our personal values. As I said before, we started with an aid organization, which they only report on what benefit they provide to people, but they are donor funded. So when the money run out or the donor no longer wish to fund the project, then the project stops. So that creates one problem, if you want, because you help the people until you stop helping them. So on the other side, you have the company that focus on profit, regardless of the impact on people or the environment. If you only focus on profit, then you maximize profit. That is your core goal. So we thought, what if there was something in between? And then that's when we came across the triple bottom line in reporting, which is people, planet, profit, which makes that the profit is important in order for the wheels to continue rolling. But when someone report on profit or the success of a project, we ask that they report on people and on the planet. So, in other words, now in Caltech, when someone is asked, how did the project go? If the answer is, oh, fantastic, we had a 7% return, there's a moment of silence where we actually, that's it. Well, then please go back to your drawing board and look at what else could we have done, or what else could we do for the people or the planet while maintaining a profit. We can't do it at a loss, because if you do too many projects at a loss, then you go backward and then you need to stop everything altogether. So the very foundation of sustainability is actually profit, which is just saying that. There's a lot of people who would go like, oh, absolutely outrageous. But it's the fact. The sustainability, green initiatives, good, end of poverty initiatives and all this cannot be donor funded, because then they are dependent of the state of the economy. Hardship put an end to all project that look after people in a time of hardship. So that doesn't make sense. So if your product sells because it's good, then it doesn't matter that it's green or not. It sells because it's good, and it happens to be green. And you might make less profit than the less green version of said product. However, you're still returning a profit. So with Caltech, this attitude means that we are maybe carrying people that should be on part-time but are on full-time. Maybe some of them have got some benefit that they would not necessarily have in different organization. Or maybe we provide services to the environment that were not required in the tender project, or but if we walk past a pile of scrap metal and we happen to have an excavator and a truck, if nobody takes offense of us picking it up, then it will be picked up, and then it is what it is. The same way that, it's I'll drink a bit of water, sorry.
Clear the throat.
Say the water is a good example in the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
At some stage, we were like everyone. Yeah, can I have a bottle with my meals? Yeah, here's a bottle, because that's literally how you got water. So by adopting the water in a glass, the restaurant has actually lost revenue, because our bottled water sales have dropped by 95%. So, but that was a business decision. So lose the profit to reduce the amount of bottles being used and have a bit, some way a benefit on the planet without impacting the people, because the water is still good quality. It's not tap water, it's bottled water, but from a 20-liter bottle rather than a 330 milliliter bottle.
Mm-hmm.
But that bottle was earning us $1 with every meal. So we've lost $1 per client for the last 5 years. So if you table that was a lot of profit, but it was a business decision.
So sometimes maybe only benefiting 2 out of the 3 Ps. So maybe the people and the planet, but not the profit.
Exactly. Sometimes you need to sacrifice the profit, or some profit, but for instance, if someone was coming in and say, we're going to give the water in a glass, we're going to give the meal, so it's good for the people, it's good for the planet, but there's zero profit, it's actually a loss. Then we could only do it for a certain amount of time, and then we'd have to stop. We'd be out of business. So this is the sort of things that we can't afford. You need to have it. You need to have the profit to be able to look after the people and the planet. But for instance, if the person takes a meal and gets a free glass of water, then you will make profit on the meal, which allows you to not have to make profit on the bottle. So it's good for the person, it's good for the people, because the person saves $1 basically. The planet saves a bottle to get to dispose of, and then we serve a meal, so we still have part of our profit. So this is the sort of things where we work, we work together. When it comes to a construction site, for instance, at the end of a construction site, you need to clean the rubbish. That's part of the job. You are actually being paid for this. It's in your tender price. Normally, it would go to the landfill, and then it would create an expense to the government of Timor for them to bury all that material into a landfilling site. So by having created a line of recycled product, we have reduced the amount of landfill material the material that we send to landfill, and as a result, the government, in fairness, the government save money. The planet see some material being reused and some resources being reused rather than disposed of. And the client does not see an increase of cost, because the price already included to remove the material from site, the construction waste, the packaging, et cetera. So, and the client was happy to see it being disposed in the landfill, And now he's happier to know that it's being reused into something else. So it's good for everyone. It's win-win-win. And therefore the triple bottom line. So this is the project we're trying to source and to develop. For instance, for Earth Day this week, we offered our staff to take a tree home. We have multiple trees in here, from multiple sizes, from 10 centimeter all the way to 2 or 3 meters. And a lot of our staff were quite happy to take home and plant it. Now, the cost to the business was one person 5 years ago to spend a day putting little seeds in a little bag of earth, which was then left alone and watered once a week, by one of our staff. And then these trees have grown. So today we're giving them a $10 or $20 tree because it's big.
Yeah.
But the real cost to the business is someone picking up the seed from the ground, 5 years ago. So in terms of what is the real price, yes, the company has lost the possibility to sell that tree.
Mm-hmm.
But the real cost to the business, is it the money we lose today of the inventory value of that tree, or the investment that we put in the seed 10 years ago? So this is, again, if you use a profit reporting, you've lost the value of the tree in 2026. That tree was worth $30 on the open market.
Mm-hmm.
When if you use a triple bottom line, the real cost to the business was $5 for 50, or like $20 for 100, and then the time of letting them grow. But the benefit to the planet is that they will be planted and provide shade, and who knows. And the benefit to us is that now we have a bit more space to start again.
And plants make people happy.
Exactly. And it also makes people realize the potential of doing that. Basically the solution to most problems is to show up. It's incremental. It doesn't matter. You don't have to fix everything today. Just take one step, and you're one step closer to your goal. Yes, it would be nice if you would take 3 steps today, but if you only have one step in you, don't stop taking that step just because you were meant to do 3 steps. Just take the step. It's already better than nothing. It's like it's the same solution for gym. It's the same solution for saving. It's the same solution for building your house. I haven't got the energy to go to the gym for 2 hours or for 1 hour. I have only 10 minutes in me. Well, then do the 10 minutes. It's already better than 0. I don't only have time to put 3 bricks on my house. Well, put 3 bricks. It's just showing up every day, a little bit more. And that's basically what triggered the circular and the success of Caltech in general, is that we've always been willing to show up, even when it's hard, even when we don't have the energy to do everything we wanted to do. But you need to know where you're going and keep heading that way. And eventually, one day you will achieve less than what you thought. Another day you might surprise yourself and achieve significantly more than you thought, and significantly faster. And you might meet people along the way that want to help you getting there as well. So it's all about showing up, basically.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely 2 points from there to tackle. Well, not tackle, but to be showing up. Every time you receive a call, there's a problem for you to fix. What is it that has you keep showing up and to be motivated to fix that problem?
There is no doubt that it can be very frustrating, very hard at times, to keep showing up. But the positive impact, you need to forget the problem and look at the solution. You need to remind yourself why you're there, why you started the whole thing in the first place, and look at the triple P. You know, has my time in Timor been pleasant? Not every day, you know, but you know, you look at a relationship, you look at a job. Has every day on your job been pleasant? Probably not. But, you know, I keep saying, is it more smile than tears? Yes. Well, then it's good enough. You know, like at the end, you can have bad days, you can have good days. You will have hard days. You will have less hard days. It's pretty rare you will have an easy day. Most days are hard, you know, but you pick your hard. You know, it's hard to stay in shape, but it's also hard to be sick. It's hard to be divorced, but it's also hard to be married. You know, you need to show up and you pick your hard. You know, like it's hard to run a business, but it's hard to be poor and to not have a job. It's hard to be in charge of multiple projects, but it's also hard to not have any responsibility. You know, like, so to me, I get a lot of joy from seeing people develop. I get frustrated when they don't develop at the speed that I would have liked or that I expected. But is it their fault or is it my fault? You know, we'll never know. But, you know, at the end, you look at the achievement and, you know, you think, okay, so today we have to fix this problem. How can we fix it? But when you look at, you know, the success and the people and the triple P, basically the impact that you have done on the planet, on the people, and the profit too, you know, like the hardship and the hard work that we put in has been profitable to us as a family and has been profitable to Timor as a nation. You look at, for example, more than 1.5 million kilo of plastic have been recycled so far. There's some of these desks that are now have been deployed in Arturo Island in the school there. So, you know, we got paid for that. So it's not like we donated the plastic or donated the desk, but it was by acquiring these desks, it allowed for the plastic to be collected, creating job, turning into a board, then sent to a workshop. Some tradesmen turned it into a desk, and now some students are using the desk. So there was some frustration along the way, but when you look at the result, you know, it outweighed the frustration. So basically, it was worth it to go through the hardship of getting there for the result that you have had. So it's a little bit like, do you feel like going for a walk every day or going to the gym every day? Not at all, not really. Some days you really feel like it, others no. But, you know, my view on this is an hour in the gym is better than an hour in the hospital, you know? So again, it's personal choice, it's personal vision. But to me, the key to success, the key to life is to show up even when it's hard, basically, even when it's frustrated. You know, showing up is not going to make it any easier. It's not going to make it any more pleasant. But the only way you go through hardship is go through it. You know, I mean, I'm from North America. There's an animal, the bison. When there's a storm coming, they walk towards the storm. They don't just sit there and wait for it. They walk towards it, and then they keep walking because their view is if the storm is coming and they're staying here, they will have to go through the entire storm. If they walk against it, they're gonna be there less. The storm will pass faster because they're walking through it. So, not sure if it's right, but you see them coming out the other end of the storm, then you know they don't look like they've enjoyed themselves. But it's kind of this mentality that if your day is hell, well, maybe you should keep walking and go through it. You know, like so to me, that has been the driving force that I've tried to instill in everyone in the business. Don't expect it to be easy. It's gonna be hard. Life is hard. I don't raise my daughter telling her that life should be easy. Like, maybe I'm overly pessimistic, but life is hard. And you learn to live through it, and you go through it, and then you get the success along the way.
Yeah. And another project of yours that I really admire is the boxing rink that you have set up here at the Venture Hotel and Cafe. And how did that one come about? You saw a possibility, right?
I saw a problem, or not like
a possibility from the
possibility.
problem.
Yeah, that's it. It all started with this gym was meant to be a private gym. Like there's limited opportunity. Again, there is gyms now, but back in the days there was less, and some of them were the other side of town and all this, and the whole thing when you're busy and you have to allow half an hour of traffic to get to the gym on a day that you don't really feel like going to the gym. That's often what will make you skip. And as I said, so how do you make that easy? How do you make your hardship easier? So bring the gym to you. And I'm not really the gym person. I like doing things, but not necessarily lifting weights and the likes and the machines. And so it started with a punching bag and a skipping rope and a few dumbbells and things like that, just to exercise and all this. And then other expats started saying, "Oh, can I come and train there sometime? It would be convenient for me." So we said, "Well, yeah." So suddenly it was just a friends and acquaintance that would come and train and the likes. And then the boxing coach came about. There's a boxing coach that could show you some drills and some footwork and all that. Yeah, why not? Let's get that going. And then a few people joined, and then said boxing coach mentioned at some stage that he was training some young Timorese aspiring boxers. And then I said, "Well, do they train?" He said, "Oh, they train there and there and there." And then we went to have a look, and the facility was very basic. So we thought, well, they could train here. It's the same level of development in terms of gyms if you want. So if you want, you're here. If you want to invite them, then no problem. But then we realized that there was, 3-4 boxers, one bag. So then we suddenly say, "Oh, let's add a bag, let's add it." And then so gradually over time it built up. And as I said before, incremental. You don't have to build everything today. Just if we add one bag per month for 12 months in a row, we'll end up with 12 bags at the end of the year. And this is a little bit now what you see is 5 years of in development, if you want. And these boxers are part of the aspiring boxers for Timor-Leste, but there's a next generation as well. So we thought, what can we do for the kids in general and all this? And so we decided to sponsor the boxing club and ask for the coach to teach once a day anyone that wants to show up, any Timorese that wants to learn boxing. So we open to public. So from 6 to 8 o'clock every day on the weekdays, we have a coach. And then we thought, well, we don't want a membership. This is a social corporate responsibility, if you want. We want people to be able to come, even those who have limited means. So we set the price at 10 bottles, empty plastic bottles per session. So as a result, the kids, any kids can come as long as they have 10 bottles. And so we have days where there's 25, 30 people, all the way to sometimes 100 people. And these bottles obviously gets recycled by Caltech environment, circular. And and it gives the kids something to do. And we've got kids that I've not missed a session since nearly a year, so day in, day out, rain or shine, they're there, So that, again, incremental, 10 bottles a day for 250 days, So that kid has collected 2,500 bottles in a year.
And sometimes if the kid doesn't turn up with his 10 bottles, his or her bottles.
If they have 8, they are asked to go back and look for 2. That policy has led to a very clean neighborhood, because obviously they don't want to miss their session, so they run around looking for bottles. And then they have learned to barter with one another. So some of them bring 11, and then you see them trading at the front of the hotel before they walk in, and then some are smart as well. They bring some bigger ones, and then they say, well, a big one should be considered like 3 small ones and all this, and so we have to negotiate with them. So, yeah.
Teach them to be business makers of their own from a very young age.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned to our boxing coach, you want to invest time in the guy that is asked for 10 but bring 12.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when you tell him to do 10 push-ups, he might do 11, because this is how, winning is done. You try to do a little bit more than everyone around you. So it teaches discipline, but it also it gives us a good intuition into the level of motivation, level of commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I guess in a way to sort of close off the cycle, when you came to Timor-Leste, and then it's had you here for a lot longer than you expected, I'm sure. So what would you say that Timor-Leste has given you that you didn't expect?
That's it. Probably purpose. I had a very good childhood in a good country with good parents, good neighborhood. What we would say, if you in comparison to the rest of the world, I would have had a privileged childhood. To a point where it was almost oblivious that it was not the standard childhood that everyone would have in the world. My time overseas from young adult life made me realize that, this is definitely not like my childhood. This is definitely not, I never had to skip a meal. I never had to run in the forest. I never seen my house being burned by enemy. I never had the enemy at the gate. I never had to worry about, being harassed or being arrested or checkpoints or, for us, what you had to worry before going out was the weather. When for a lot of people there's significantly lot more challenges than that. So would I say that I really came to realize that I almost had a debt towards the world that I needed to repay? I would not say that was that feeling, but it's slightly that feeling where I was, what can I do? What's my purpose? What can I do? What can I repay that blessed childhood that I have had? And I thought maybe changing the life of other people, making it easier for them, carrying some of their load if you want. And Timor was a perfect place for that, because there was a lot of turmoil and a lot of need at the time. And so we've been trying to positively impact the place, and also positively impact the people. So I think I can look back and say, well, if I had not been here, some people would have had a tougher life. Not necessarily that was, they would have been okay, but I just maybe I made a hard day a little bit easier, and that was, to me that's my blessing, if you want. That's my positive impact on the world.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Thank you for sharing it with me. I'm going to go find 10 plastic bottles and come make use of the boxing rink now, if I may.
You may. You would be surprised from the size of the little one all the way to, like when you sit in here at 6 o'clock in the restaurant, in the cafe, and they go out for running or in from running. It's like the beginning of the old Star Wars movie where you have the spaceship that never ends at the beginning, and and all that. It's you see them coming in, and it's just like, oh, another one. Oh, another. Like it's very interesting. It's and obviously we have had some two of our boxers turning pro, and they've been inspirational to the next generation, and and then again. We had one, Delio, who lost recently in Australia, but he was on pay-per-view, and that, to make it all the way to a pay-per-view event, win or lose,
Yeah.
you won as far as I'm concerned.
That's huge.
Nobody has ever done that out of Timor. So, I'm very proud of him and his performance. He's put the name of Timor on the map, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. And his careers will continue. And as I said, there's days that are easier, there's days that are harder, and yeah, that's it.
Step by step.
Step by step.
Thank you very much, John.
Pleasure.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
If there's one thing to take from this conversation, it is this. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to keep showing up. Whether it's building a business, rebuilding a country, or simply getting through a tough day, progress doesn't come from big, perfect moves. It comes from small, consistent steps. What I love about this story is that it's not polished. It's not easy. It's full of hard choices, trade-offs, and moments where things could have gone the other way. But through it all, there's a clear thread. People, planet, and profit working together, not against each other. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Success isn't just what you build. It's the impact that you leave behind. Thanks for listening to 68 Cups of Blueberry Tea. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs that reminder to just take the next step. Until next time, keep showing up.